Here's a man who has spent over a year saying he wants to save PDP from the inside. He chairs the Reconciliation Committee, he builds bridges, he plays peacemaker. And yet, every single move he makes somehow ends up benefiting Nyesom Wike, the man sitting inside Tinubu's cabinet, the man openly cheering for the ruling party to win again in 2027. So let me ask you a straight question, one that nobody in this political space is asking directly. If Bukola Saraki is not working for Tinubu, then why does everything Saraki does make Tinubu's biggest ally inside PDP stronger? That is what we are getting into today, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what game is being played and who the real winners and losers are. Before we go deeper, if you are just finding Naijanewsfeed, welcome! This channel exists to break down what's really happening in Nigerian politics without the noise, without the spin. Hit subscribe and stay with me because this one gets interesting. Let me give you the full picture first, so everything else makes sense. On March 26, 2026, just this week, former Senate President Bukola Saraki sat down on Channels Television's Politics Today program, and in that interview, he said something that has set social media on fire since. He said, and I am paraphrasing, "You cannot look at my friendship with Wike and conclude that I am working for President Tinubu." He said he is not a night person. He does not do things indirectly. If he's going to back someone, he will come out and say it plainly. Now, why is this interview happening now? What triggered it? Cast your mind back to November 2025. The PDP held a national convention in Ibadan, Oyo State. That convention produced Tanimu Turaki as the new national chairman. But there was a massive problem. Courts had already warned the party not to hold that convention because proper congresses had not been conducted in 14 states. The party went ahead anyway, and then all hell broke loose. Fast forward to March 9, 2026, just weeks ago, the Court of Appeal in Abuja delivered a damning judgment. It upheld an earlier Federal High Court ruling. It confirmed that the Ibadan Convention was invalid. The leadership produced there has no legal standing. Saraki, who had chaired the PDP Reconciliation Committee throughout this crisis, responded immediately. He said, "The court has ruled. Move on. No time for the Supreme Court appeal. INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission's timetable for 2027 will not wait for you." That response, urging the Turaki faction to accept defeat, is what people are reading as a pro-Wike move, because Wike's camp is the one that opposed the Ibadan Convention from the start. Saraki telling Turaki's side to accept defeat looks to many observers like Saraki is fighting Wike's battles for him. That is the trigger event. Now let us go deeper. Saraki actually warned against the Ibadan Convention before it happened. To understand why any of this matters, you need to know the legal rules of the game. Under Nigeria's Electoral Act 2022 and the 1999 Constitution as amended, a political party cannot just wake up and hold a national convention any when it likes. There is a process. First, you must conduct congresses at the ward, local government, and state levels to elect delegates. Those delegates then vote at the national convention. You must also give INEC a formal 21-day notice signed by both the national chairman and the national secretary. Here's what the PDP did wrong with the Ibadan Convention. Number one, they had not completed valid congresses in 14 states, so the delegates who showed up in Ibadan did not have a proper legal mandate. Number two, the notice sent to INEC was signed by only the national chairman. The national secretary's signature was missing. The Federal High Court ruled that this made the entire notice legally invalid. The court did not say PDP cannot hold a convention. It said go back, fix your process, and do it properly. The Turaki faction appealed. The Court of Appeal looked at everything and said the lower court was right. Dismissed. The Turaki camp is now threatening to go to the Supreme Court. Here is where the institutional angle gets politically loaded. INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, is caught in the middle. There are now multiple court orders flying around, including some contradictory rulings from different courts. INEC has said it will comply with the subsisting order, which is the one nullifying the Ibadan Convention. What does this mean practically? It means PDP currently has no INEC-recognized national leadership. They are operating in a legal limbo with 2027 elections approaching fast. The clock is ticking, and every day this drags on is a day PDP cannot properly organize, cannot raise money in a structured way, cannot build alliances. That is the institutional context. Now, who is benefiting from this chaos?
This is the section that changes the picture. Pay attention. Who is Nyesom Wike really? Wike was PDP Rivers State Governor. In 2023, he and 4 other governors, what the media called the G5 or Integrity Group, broke ranks with PDP's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. They refused to campaign for Atiku. Some analysts believe their rebellion contributed directly to Tinubu's victory. After Tinubu won, Wike was rewarded with a ministerial appointment. He became Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. That is one of the most powerful cabinet positions in Nigeria. Here is the critical thing. Wike is still technically a PDP member, but he is sitting inside Tinubu's cabinet. In March 2026, he publicly declared support for candidates who aligned with President Tinubu ahead of 2027. So we have an opposition party figure who is openly cheerleading for the ruling party's president. That is what makes Wike so combustible inside PDP. What is Saraki's position? Bukola Saraki is a former Senate President. Before that, he was governor of Kwara State. His political history is fascinating. He was APC, defected to PDP in 2019, and has been trying to rebuild inside the opposition ever since. He was appointed to chair PDP's Reconciliation Committee in 2024. His stated goal has been to stop the party from self-destructing before 2027. Now, here is where it gets complicated. Saraki and Wike are friends. They attend events together. In November 2025, both were photographed at former Governor Ayo Fayosi's 65th birthday alongside Vice President Kashim Shettima, yes, Tinubu's VP. That photo alone sent political analysts into overdrive. Saraki's opponents inside PDP, like party chieftain Umar Sani, have said openly that Saraki is not neutral. Quote, he is fully with the Wike faction. Some party insiders have gone further, alleging he is involved in land dealings in Abuja connected to Wike. Saraki's media office dismissed all of this as falsehoods. Saraki actually opposed the Ibadan Convention. This changes the framing completely. Here is the fact that almost no one is leading with. Saraki, in his channel's TV interview, confirmed that he warned against the Ibadan Convention before it happened. He said, and this is a direct quote from the interview, "I screamed, I shouted at that time and said, look, don't let us go and do this convention. The best thing for us at this point in time is let us have a caretaker committee." His Reconciliation Committee and the party's Board of Trustees both advised against the Ibadan Convention. The party's NWC at the time, led by those aligned with the Wike camp's opponents, went ahead anyway. So Saraki is now saying, I told you so, the court confirmed I was right, now accept the ruling and move on. That is a very different narrative from Saraki is Wike's agent. The silent players. Who are the people not making noise but pulling strings here? Watch the southern PDP governors. According to multiple reports, a block of southern PDP governors has been playing both sides, publicly aligning with Wike to get access to the presidency while quietly exploring other alliances. These governors are the real kingmakers. They have not shown their full hand yet. As 2027 approaches, watch which way they move. Also watch Atiku Abubakar. His camp has been the most aggressive in accusing Saraki of working for Tinubu. But Atiku himself is positioning for another presidential run. He needs a strong, unified PDP to contest. A destabilized PDP, one that cannot even agree on a national chairman, weakens Atiku's chances more than anyone else's. So ask yourself, whose interest is it to keep painting Saraki as a Tinubu agent? Now, if what I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your take before we get to the part that changes the whole picture. Zoom out. Because this is not just about PDP internal politics. This has real consequences for Nigeria. First, the balance of power. Nigeria's democracy functions best when there is a credible opposition, an opposition that can hold the ruling party accountable, that can offer Nigerians an alternative in 2027. Right now, PDP is not that. It is fighting itself in court while APC consolidates. Every day PDP is in chaos, Tinubu's re-election path becomes clearer. Whether or not that is Wike's intention or Saraki's, it is the practical outcome of this crisis. Second, for ordinary Nigerians. Think about the thousands of PDP members who want to contest at the state assembly level, the House of Reps, the Senate. They need a functional party structure to get primaries done, to file nominations with INEC on time. If PDP does not resolve this leadership crisis before INEC's deadlines, those members cannot contest. Their political ambitions are held hostage by the egos of people at the top. Third, the zoning question. One of the most explosive issues inside this PDP crisis is who gets what position at the next convention. Saraki's camp has publicly stated that in their view, the presidential ticket should go to the South in 2027 since Tinubu is a Southerner seeking a second term. It makes sense for PDP to also field a Southerner to compete. But critically, Saraki has said the 2031 cycle should go to the North without ambiguity. This is Saraki trying to preempt accusations that he is lobbying for a Southern presidency while Tinubu, a fellow Southerner, holds power. The North-South power balance is always the undercurrent in Nigerian politics. Any disruption to the accepted rotation, whether real or perceived, creates deep tension. The PDP crisis is stirring all of this up at the exact wrong time, 18 months before a general election. Now, let me be honest with you. There is no major foreign government commenting directly on this PDP internal crisis. That would be unusual. But there is an international dimension worth flagging. Western governments, the UK, the US, and multilateral bodies like the EU have been closely watching Nigeria's democratic trajectory since 2023. The last presidential election was heavily scrutinized. There were concerns raised about the process, the results, the judiciary. Nigeria's democratic credibility internationally depends partly on whether it has a functional opposition. For Nigerians in the diaspora, here is what you need to understand. The PDP crisis is not just a soap opera. If PDP cannot organize itself into a credible opposition by 2027, there is a real possibility that Tinubu's APC runs virtually unopposed at the federal level. A democracy with no real competition is not really a democracy. The diaspora has been one of the most vocal groups pushing for electoral accountability in Nigeria. Watch this space, because the strength or weakness of PDP going into 2027 will determine how credible the election is and how engaged international observers will be. Also worth watching, Wike, as FCT Minister, controls enormous federal contracts in Abuja. Foreign companies with Nigeria interests in construction, real estate, infrastructure are watching his political survival very carefully. His continued relevance in federal power structures has direct economic implications.
Misconception 1. Saraki endorsed Tinubu. This one needs to die. An aide to Atiku Abubakar claimed on social media that Saraki's comment about a Southern presidency being appropriate in 2027 was an indirect endorsement of Tinubu. Saraki's media office pushed back hard, and they have a point. Tinubu is not the only Southerner who will contest in 2027. Saying the presidential cycle should stay in the South does not mean you are supporting the APC candidate. That is a logical stretch. Do not fall for it. Misconception 2. Saraki is a Wike agent. The strongest version of this argument goes, Saraki and Wike are seen together at events, Saraki is telling Turaki's side to accept defeat, and Saraki's reconciliation efforts always seem to benefit Wike's faction. That is a fair observation, up to a point. But here's where it falls apart. Saraki was telling both sides to calm down before the Ibadan convention. He warned against the convention itself. The convention was pushed through by the Turaki faction, the faction opposed to Wike. If Saraki were purely a Wike agent, why was he also counseling restraint on Wike's camp during earlier disputes? The picture is more complicated than he is Wike's man.
Misconception 3. The PDP crisis is just about personalities. The most damaging misconception. This crisis is about institutional power and 2027 electoral positioning. Whoever controls PDP's national secretariat controls the party's treasury, its candidate nomination process, and its relationship with INEC. This is about tens of billions of naira in party dues, candidate fees, and political patronage. It is about who has leverage going into 2027 primaries. Never reduce this to personal beef. Follow the money and the power. The bottom line, Saraki is not a Tinubu agent, but he is also not a purely neutral actor. He is a skilled politician managing relationships in a way that keeps his options open. That is exactly what seasoned politicians do. Pretending otherwise is naive. Most likely next moves. Watch for whether the Turaki faction goes to the Supreme Court. If they do, PDP could be in legal limbo well into late 2026, dangerously close to INEC's pre-election activity deadlines. That is the nightmare scenario. Saraki will likely continue positioning himself as the reasonable center, the man everyone can do business with. If PDP eventually produces a stable leadership structure ahead of convention, Saraki will claim that as a reconciliation win. If PDP fractures further, he will say he warned them. Wike's next move is the one to really watch. In early March 2026, he publicly backed candidates aligned with Tinubu. Will he escalate that position? Could he eventually formally exit PDP and either join APC or support a third-party alternative? If Wike leaves PDP, the political calculus for everyone, including Saraki, changes overnight. Signals that things are escalating. 1. If more PDP governors openly side with Wike over the National Secretariat. 2. If the Supreme Court agrees to hear the Turaki appeal and issues a stay of execution, freezing all PDP activities. 3. If Atiku's camp begins formal moves to build an opposition coalition outside PDP. Any one of these signals means the crisis is deepening, not resolving. Best case versus worst case. Best case, all factions accept the Court of Appeal ruling. PDP holds a fresh court-compliant convention by mid-2026. A new leadership is installed that all blocs, including Wike's, can work with. PDP enters 2027 with a functioning structure and a credible presidential candidate. Worst case, the Turaki faction gets a Supreme Court stay. PDP is frozen for months. INEC's deadlines pass. Members cannot get nominated on the PDP platform. PDP effectively becomes a non-factor in 2027. APC wins the federal election by default, and the South-South and South-East, traditional PDP strongholds, lose their primary political vehicle. Long-term, if PDP does not fix this, the vacuum it leaves will accelerate the rise of third-force movements. Labour Party's 2023 performance showed there is a massive appetite for an alternative. A dysfunctional PDP supercharges that demand. Let me bring this home. We opened with a question. If Saraki is not working for Tinubu, why does everything he does make Wike stronger? Here's the honest answer. Saraki is doing what every strategic politician does. He is keeping all his doors open. His friendship with Wike is real, but so is his stated commitment to PDP's survival. These two things are not mutually exclusive. You can be friends with a powerful minister in the ruling party and still be in the opposition. Nigerian politics is not binary. It is a web of relationships and leverage. What Saraki is definitely not doing is working quietly for Tinubu. His public statements, his intervention before and after the Ibadan convention, and his open advocacy for a PDP-led opposition all run counter to that narrative. People who say otherwise are either misreading him or deliberately misrepresenting him for factional advantage. What he is doing is positioning himself as indispensable, someone both the Wike faction and the broader PDP need. That is smart politics. Whether it's good for PDP as an institution is a separate question. The question I want to leave you with is this. If PDP continues to implode and the 2027 election ends up being APC versus nobody, is that a failure of leadership, or is it a system working exactly as the people at the top designed it? Drop your take in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. If this breakdown gave you clarity on what's really going on, do me a favor and share it with one person who needs to understand this. Like the video, subscribe to Naijanewsfeed, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.